Singularity, Book 2 of the Forgotten Realms series. Chapter 1. It would be daybreak soon. With it would come the full day of chores, as was Kira's life on the farm. She rolled over, slid out of bed, and shivered. It was a cold fall morning. She dressed quickly, pulling her sweater over her long black hair. It got caught. She cursed and then put her hand over her mouth. If her father woke up before the coffee was ready, it would make for a long day. Kira corrected herself quickly made her bed. Then she made her way out into the kitchen. She made a quick fire in the stove and set the kettle on to boil as she fetched more wood. It took her slender, muscled body only a few minutes to restock the wood pile. She threw another piece of wood on the fire and then made her way out to the hen house to fetch the eggs for breakfast. She nearly cussed again as the rooster pecked at her boots. She thought for sure that she would trip over the stupid bird. With the eggs secure, Kira gave the rooster a taste of her boot to his tail and then scampered back inside. She put the egg basket on the counter and fetched the bacon out of the ice chest. She stoked the fire and put the cast iron frying pan on to warm up. She fried up the bacon, then the eggs, and set the table. She ate quickly, cleaned up her dishes, and left her father's plate next to the coffee. How she managed to slip out without waking him, Kira didn't stop to question. She had too much work to do to dawdle. She made her way out to the barn and hitched up the horse to the cart and took them out into the orchard. Half of the apples looked ready for harvest. For a normal girl, it would take weeks to collect from a grove as large as the one belonging to her father. Kira smiled because she knew that she wasn't normal. This grove flourished because she nourished it, breathed life into every branch, every bud, and tended to it out of love. She was magic, and she gave it all to the earth because she knew somehow it returned to her. She walked through the rows of trees with her hands raised above her head. The apples flowed to her, gathering in a cloud above her head. She merrily sang a tune as she continued on her way. No, it wouldn't take long at all, she smiled to herself as the cart filled up with each pass. Sephiroth woke up to the wonderful smell of coffee. When he emerged from his room, he found that his daughter had left him breakfast. He smiled at her thoughtful nature as he sat down to eat. It wouldn't be another week and she would be 16. He sighed at the thought and cleaned up after himself. If he knew her, she would have the cart full and ready for town before he even got himself on the horse to meet her. Sephiroth slowly made his way over to the door. Every battle scar he had gotten over the years ached when it got this cold. He muttered curses and slipped into his jacket. He reached into the basket and pulled out his silver-handled cane. He gave it a twist and then a tug, sliding it apart to check the condition of the sword inside. Satisfied that it was all right, he put it back together and headed for the barn. The horse was harnessed, saddled, and tethered to the post. All Sephiroth had to do was hoist himself onto the monster's back. He stuffed his cane in his belt loop, grabbed the saddle horn, and pulled himself up with a groan. He then gave a gentle kick and headed for the orchard at a slow walk. By the time Sephiroth found the cart, it was half loaded with apples. The sun had finally managed to appear in the sky as well. He dismounted and walked the horse toward the cart. "Kira," he called out. "Over here, Papa," she replied as she bounced out from the tree line. Sephiroth huffed as he saw the apples floating behind her. "What did I tell you about that, Kira?" "Oh, like anyone is out here to see it, Papa." Kira laughed as the apples floated into the cart. "That's beside the point," he scolded. "I'm sorry, Papa, I won't use my magic in view again," she pouted. "Thank you," he replied. "Are you ready to take these to the market?" he then asked. "Yes, Papa," she replied softly and climbed into the cart. Sephiroth pulled himself back up in the saddle as Kira turned the cart around. They made their way up the orchard path and onto the main road leading north to Avalon. They made good time and had the horses tethered in front of the castle as the sun neared the high point of the day. "You go on ahead and take the queen her basket. I'll be there in a minute," Sephiroth instructed as he eased off his horse. "Okay, Papa," Kira replied and bounced away. Kira made her way up the hall and into the throne room. She carried the overflowing basket in front of her. The room was empty, all for the oversized glass prism in the center of it. She curiously made her way over to it and ran her hand across the smooth surface. Her finger snagged on something, and she let out a hiss as blood welled up to the surface. She wiped her finger dry on her pants and turned away as she heard footsteps approach. "What do you think you're doing?" Saphira hissed. "Stay away from there." "I'm sorry," Kira said as she slowly backed away. "I didn't mean anything by it." "You had better be sorry. You have no idea what could be unleashed," Saphira snapped. "Kira!" Sephiroth boomed. "Papa," she replied, startled. "Take the produce down to the market," he replied as he took the basket from her hands. "Yes, Papa," she bowed quickly and scampered away while she had the opportunity. Sephiroth looked at his wife Saphira and was filled with sadness. Once upon a time she had been a beautiful woman, full of life and spirited to a fault. Now she was broken, fragile, and fading away. Being the keeper of the great betrayer Damascus had taken her love of life away, and with it all hope of a future with her in it. "You shouldn't be so hard on the girl," he scolded as he put his arms around her. "You're right, my love. Will you apologize for me?" she asked with a heavy sigh. "I will." He kissed her forehead. "Are you ready to tell her the truth?" he asked. "She looks just like you," she replied, avoiding his question. "She's growing up, going to be 16 soon," he replied. "Has it been that long?" she asked, genuinely surprised. "Yes, it has. Just like every year. Here are your apples." He smiled and handed her the basket. "Your daughter picked them herself this year. She has developed quite the collection of magical abilities," Sephiroth replied. "So it would seem," she smiled sadly. "I love you. Go be with your daughter." She kissed him gently. "I love you," he replied, and kissed her back tenderly. "Go on, out with you." She smiled and nudged him towards the door. Sephiroth watched Saphira for a moment longer and then walked away. She didn't want him or Kira anywhere near the castle. She had been waiting 16 years for this day. She knew it was finally upon her, the moment she laid her eyes on her daughter. Today was the day she was going to die. Saphira walked over to the glass prison that held Damascus and looked it over with a defeated sigh. As she circled it for the second time, still nothing happened. She began to wonder if perhaps she could have been wrong. Then, all at once, it shattered. She didn't even have time to shield her face. In that instant, he was upon her, piercing her flesh with a broken shard. He eased her to the floor with a wicked grin. "I told you I would find a way," Damascus said. Saphira's eyes closed as her blood spilled out onto the floor. As she breathed her last breath, Damascus squealed with glee and vanished into nothing.